Now we know definitively that a Super Bowl winning head coach, along with Pete Carroll, who they're not interested in, but Mike McCarthy, a younger former Super Bowl winning head coach, he's available. He's out there now. And from a Jets perspective, I don't know how they can interview everybody else and not go inquire about McCarthy. Vrabel off the board to New England. Sounds like Rex isn't getting the job. Thankful for that. Still plenty of good options out there. But now that McCarthy shake's free, the Jets have to inquire about him.
Sometimes you got to be really proactive and lift up every stone, as they say, leave no stone unturned. And that's why we started the show talking about Tomlin and how things have gotten stale out there, where I think there's a window, not only for the Jets, but for others to at least call the Steelers and entice them in a trade and try to get him to if you have a vacancy. And then sometimes things just fall in your lap. And here's, as Sal said, a Super Bowl winning coach. I know he stumbled a few times at Lambeau. He's got a bit of a complex legacy as well. He's not like a platinum all-time 5-star head coach. He's not Lombardi. He's not Parcells. He's not Shula. He's not Belichick. Not one of those guys. But he's not Andy Reid. But he's kind of not Tom Landry. But he's probably in the next tier. Like, he's there. He's there with Coughlin, I would think, even though Coughlin's got 2 and he's got 1. So I don't know. I know what Woody said about how open he is to bringing back Aaron Rodgers. Whether or not he means that, basically, if you missed it, Woody said last week he'll let the new regime make that determination. If you believe he'll stand by that, well, if Mike McCarthy raved and spoke very favorably about Rodgers on the Enigma documentary that both you and I watch and have referenced many times here on the show, and it wasn't just nonsense, which it seemed pretty authentic to me, and Aaron Rodgers wants to still play and wants to still be a Jet, how the hell do you not make the call? Of course you do.
Okay, so here's why I have my doubts about the Jets getting this right. Because, well, let me ask you, before I give you my opinion on this, and we've had this conversation, but just to rehash it and bring it up again for those of you who might be listening for the first time to the BT and Sal show, thank you, welcome aboard.
Yes.
What is your main criteria for the next hire for the Jets head coach? Give me like your top 2 things that you would want for a Jets head coach.
I would like a head coach who's done it before and not just done it, but done it well. A head coach who knows offense to get this thing out of the Stone Age. However, Aaron Glenn's the one exception.
Yeah, interesting. Okay,
yeah, those are my main 2.
I kind of agree that if there is an exception to the rule, maybe I'd be intrigued by Aaron Glenn, but my number one thing is that I want somebody who's done it before and who's had success doing it before. Not just, he has experience. No, experience and some success. The number 2 thing I would look for would be an offensive guy. All right, so let's just stick with the number 1 part. The Jets had an opportunity this offseason alone to have Bill Belichick, turned him down. One, obviously, I don't need to go over the resume. Maybe not. Pete Carroll. Don't need to go over the resume. We know he's 73. That's the one thing you can poke a hole in his resume is his age. Haven't inquired about him. John Gruden, maybe more question marks. Sure, I can understand why you wouldn't want him, but again, experience, Super Bowl winning head coach.
No interest.
Mike McCarthy now. Another point is, BT, you're talking about there were at least legit 4 former Super Bowl winning head coaches, some better than the next, that are going to be available for the Jets. They turned down 1, didn't inquire about 2, and now the 4th, Mike McCarthy will be available. Not to mention Mike Tomlin, who could potentially be available. That is a pretty hefty, pool of head coaches to go after right there. And the Jets aren't even going after the majority of them, if any of them at all. Of the 5 here, right? Carroll, Gruden, McCarthy, Tomlin, Belichick. Now, again, I don't think Tomlin's going to be available. He might be, at least inquire, maybe for a trade. 5 former Super Bowl winning head coaches potentially available.
Yeah.
Do you think the Jets get any one of them?
Belichick's gone. That ship has sailed. Pete Carroll, no. Gruden, no. Tomlin, no. No, I don't.
Yeah, me
At the
neither.
end of the day, I don't.
And also the other perspective from, let's say, McCarthy or Tomlin even, if Tomlin was available, would he want the Jets? We don't know. He'd have to want the Jets.
He's got a no trade.
Okay, as a caller brought up before. And then McCarthy is going to have his options, mainly Chicago, New Orleans. Would he want the Jets? I'm not so sure, because I think maybe there's a part of him that would be well, New York would be appealing with Rodgers for a year with the pieces that they have in place offensively and defensively.
Depends if he really likes Caleb Williams. If he likes Caleb Williams, then the answer is different than if he doesn't, obviously. The one thing, you gave the list. You asked me to start this conversation, and we will get back to the Colts in a minute, BT and Sal here. But when you said, what are you looking for? And even though Glenn is counter to this, a head coach who's done it before and won, and preferably somebody from an offensive perspective, right? I'm going to give you a third one. That's less important, but if it presents itself, it would be a plus. Of a head coach who meets that criteria, who's also dealt with a meddlesome owner.
Right.
Check from McCarthy. Yeah. Because he just operated in Dallas.
Bingo is actually going to be like a country club with Woody compared to
what
Jerry,
I mean?
you would think. I think that if the Jets, because it's rare that you have a coaching, what do you call it?
Vacancy, carousel.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, the offseason, exactly, to hire a Super Bowl winning head coach, let alone 5, potentially, 4 or 5.
Yeah.
So when you have we come back, the coaching circle, whatever, the coaching carousel, to hire a guy who's won a Super Bowl, and you're looking for a guy with experience, and that to me is the number one thing this team needs, and you've got those guys out there, you got to end up with one of them. I would love Mike McCarthy for the Jets, especially.
I take him.
Even more now, BT, than I would have after what happened with Green Bay. After what happened in Dallas, I love him even more now, and I love the idea of McCarthy and Rodgers together one more time.
Yeah, I would sign up for that.
My top candidate all along has been Pete Carroll. After Belichick said no, or they said no to Belichick, it's been Pete Carroll. I think McCarthy would surpass him. McCarthy, the age is a factor.
Yep.
Rodgers is a factor.
Yep.
Those two things for me, even though I love Pete Carroll as a coach and know he's a program changer, my top choice would, assuming Tomlin's not available, my top choice would be Mike McCarthy.